Thank you so much for joining us for Community IT's webinar. We are presenting today a nonprofit digital health workshop with Tim Lockie from Human Stack. I'm going to let Tim introduce himself in a moment, but I'm going to introduce this workshop by saying we are aiming it at smaller nonprofits with under 15 staff members. You might not think you can manage your IT needs unless you are the IT person. Some of you may have someone on staff who kind of absorbed this responsibility. Maybe you are the accidental techie. Maybe there is really no one in your nonprofit who feels comfortable managing IT, but someone has to do it, and it ended up being you. So you've come to the right place today. Tim has come to talk with us about some strategies and approaches to help walk you through the gaining the confidence to be able to make IT decisions. And we're going to talk about some free resources and next steps today. So my name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm the Outreach Director for Community IT, and I'm the moderator today. And a million years ago, I was the accidental techie in charge of IT at a very small nonprofit. And I really wish I had had a friend like Tim to reassure me that I could do it and to walk me through what to do, like the first steps to take, where to start. So I'm very, very happy to have him here today. Before I turn it over to Tim, if you're not familiar with Community IT, I'm going to give you a little bit more about us. We are 100% employee-owned managed services provider. We provide outsourced IT support, and we work exclusively with nonprofit organizations. Our mission is to help nonprofits accomplish their missions through the effective use of technology. We're big fans of what well-managed IT can do for your nonprofit. We serve nonprofits across the United States. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and we are technology experts. We are consistently given the MSP 501 recognition for being a top MSP, which is an honor we received again in 2023. And I want to remind everyone that for these webinars, Community IT is vendor agnostic. So we only make recommendations to our clients only based on their specific business needs. And we never try to get a client into a product because we have some hidden incentive or benefit to doing that. But we do consider ourselves a best of breed IT provider. And it's our job to know the landscape, the tools that are available, reputable, and widely used. And we make recommendations on that basis to our clients based on their business needs, their priorities, and their budget. We do often have guest speakers on our website who have resources and services available, and today is no exception. But I'm going to say, as with any guest speaker, that is between you and Tim. If you want to take him up on anything that he talks about today, I took the free quiz that we're about to take, and it was very helpful, but I'm in a different place from you, so your results may vary. So I want to quick touch on our learning objectives. So today we want to, at the end of the session today, we hope that you can diagnose your organization through a free digital health quiz. We want to help you understand the human behaviors and needs that are at the root of IT management at nonprofits, learn the basics of nonprofit tech decision-making strategies, and learn the order of steps to take to gain decision-making confidence. And I'm very, very happy to talk to our expert today, Tim Lockie from the Human Stack. So Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Tim Lockie. I live in Bozeman, Montana, and I'm really excited to talk with you today. I've been working in nonprofits since I was 18 and care a lot about making the world better. And I think we could leverage technology to create so much more impact with the same humans and the same resources. So if you would just go ahead and click on this QR code. And do we have a link to that as well?
Yes, I'm just going to put it in the chat.
Great, cool. You can grab that as well.
The URL for that quiz is thehumanstack.com/quiz.
Just give you a preview of yeah, perfect. What you're going to see there is 6 questions and then room for comments at the end. And these 6 questions, we're going to go through each one of the digital health vitals that the question is centered around. And what I want to show you is how it doesn't tell you everything. Obviously, it's just a quick quiz, but it's not like one of those, magazines where the quiz is just not helpful at all. There's a lot here, and I'm going to show you how I use this quiz to diagnose extremely large organizations and really tiny organizations. Same questions, thinking about it the same way. So that's and it should take just a couple of minutes. Shouldn't take that long.
Tim, do you want to talk about the human stack while we're waiting for people to do the quiz?
Yeah. So how I got here is that I just became the accidental techie at a global organization, nonprofit. And the more I did the tech, the more I liked it. And I finally realized this is my bit in life, is to help nonprofits with their data and with their technology. So in 2010, I started a company called Now It Matters, and that was a consulting firm that helped people use Salesforce specifically. I became like a global expert at Salesforce MVP, traveled the world talking about Salesforce, started a user group here in Bozeman, had 6 different certifications, had like the whole thing. And I was chugging along that trail really hardcore. And then in 2019, I went to an event. Somebody put up a slide that said 90% of organizations collect data, but only 5% use that data to make decisions. And it gutted me because that was my job, right? Like that's not the like Salesforce tech, that's how you collect the data, but using that data, converting that data, that should be what I'm doing with my clients. And when I looked at our contracts and the way that we were set up, if a client did not use what we had built for them, I got paid the same amount. And when I looked at that across the industry, I just thought, we're selling transformation in our marketing, and we're delivering deliverables, and it's up to clients to just like use it or not, and they're not. And so I set out to create a different way of engaging clients around how to actually use the data that they're collecting. And what I found was maybe sometimes they shouldn't even get off of Blackbaud or whatever tool they were on. Maybe they should stay there and learn to drive the car they already have instead of getting a new one. And that was a real revelation for me and shifted my business model so much so that I started the human stack. And if you think of the reason for the name is, if the tech stack solves human problems with technology, then the human stack solves technology problems with humans, because for the technologists like us in the world, right, tech is the solution. But for everybody else, like 97% of the rest of the world, tech is the problem. And so we need to actually start addressing how do we use tech that's a problem for a lot of organizations. So I called it the human stack.
I love that. I love the way that you talk about it too, because I think I heard you speak about a year ago, and yeah, just you talk a lot about like the people, right? Like if you're stressed about your tech, or you're afraid of tech changes, or you're super busy and you can't, you just don't feel like you have time to do it. Like all of those emotions play into how you're managing and using your tech. And so, I really love that, bringing the whole person back into the question. Like it's not just the tech, like all of the people using it at your organization are really important too.
It's so true, and something that the technology industry has been completely ignoring. And is what does shame do to an organization, not just the human, like the single individuals, but across the organization? What happens when there's widespread tech shame or trauma? Like it's very easy to create tech trauma by, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So yeah, absolutely. These are very relevant because we say words like adoption and change management and governance. And for the most part in the industry, none of that actually works. We don't know what we're doing. We don't measure it. We try not to, because the numbers would be really bad. We wouldn't have case studies. Like it's just abysmal. It fails over 70% of the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Tech
Thank you,
trauma.
Haley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to say, like, I think if you talk to any person in any nonprofit across the United States, you don't even have to ask very many questions before tech trauma will come out.
Yep.
There's some like something they're doing right now that's not working very well, that's like, takes them all day to do, and they wish it were just a couple of clicks. There's something that an implementation they had in the past where they're like, oh, that was horrible. Like it was so stressful and traumatic. So yeah, it's definitely resonating.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've probably given people just about enough time to do the quiz.
All
Uh,
right.
Did you want to talk about the vitals that they have looked at in that quiz, and then we'll get to our poll?
You answered 6 questions in that quiz, and 3 of them are related to the tech stack. They're solution fit, data quality, and utilization. So those are health vitals, digital health vitals for the tech stack. On the human stack side, there is system sustainability, digital strategy, and accountability. If I have these 6 questions for an organization, I'll show you what I can do with them, but it all starts here. And part of what's important here is, Carolyn, you must have seen this over and over. The questions people want to know is that top one: what solution should I use? And what all of us know is it doesn't matter which car you're going to buy if you don't know how to drive it, right? And
Yeah.
so I wanted a way to measure 5 other things that organizations could start thinking about today, because it takes a long time to change a solution fit, like an ERP or a CRM. That takes a really long time. And in the meantime, there's a lot that can be done. So that's where this originated. And yeah,
The URL for that quiz is thehumanstack.com/quiz. It's a
yep.
pretty easy one, but for anyone listening to this, that's where you can go to find this free quiz that you can take with these 6 different areas. So Marco says these are 6 pretty good indicators, and thank you. Yeah. So, all right. So we are going to launch this poll. So now that you've taken the quiz, and if you have that, up in your browser, you can go ahead and answer the question: where is your organization the strongest? So there's these 6 indicators: solution fit, data quality, utilization, system sustainability, digital strategy, and accountability. And I made this multiple choice. So if you scored well in a couple of those, you can go ahead and check everything that applies to you. And then if you didn't take the quiz, or you're just you're at an organization that you tried to look at the quiz and it just didn't really resonate with you, and you can also choose not applicable. So go
I
ahead.
forgot to mention that the answers to the quiz are you'll get an email, and if you click on the email, that's where the answers are. So if you're not seeing that, check your inbox. I'm so sorry I did not say that earlier.
So while we have the poll open, you can go back and see in your
Yeah.
inbox. Yeah, there's a little link that you go, and it'll show you. And I think at the top it has like a little, you're running on empty, you're running, full over, and doing pretty well across the different indicators. So we'll give people another moment or so to fill in. Where is your organization doing the strongest? And that's one of the things about taking a quiz, right? Is it gives you a little bit of that insight into, it's subjective. You're making, a guesstimate maybe of where this is happening, but it helps you start thinking of these different facets and where, you are doing the strongest. We had about half, a little bit over half said that they were strongest in utilization. About half said solution fit. I'm going to go down a little bit. 30% said digital strategy. And then a tie for data quality and accountability. And a couple of people put in that it was not applicable. Oh, you know why you couldn't see it? Because I didn't share the results. That's
Oh, there you go. Okay. Very interesting.
I know
Right.
too many things at once, but there you go, everyone. You can see the results. And if we're just looking at your results to find the areas that you were strongest in, we're going to go to the next poll, which is, hold on a sec. All right, so the second poll, probably no surprise, is where were you the most challenging? And we're all in this together, so don't be shy. Everybody has challenges, and it's just interesting to see if there's any patterns of, like, people are in general feeling challenged in the same way at their organizations. And no nonprofit is the same. Every nonprofit is a special flower. So it's definitely you're going to have specific challenges and strengths at your organization, but this will just give us a little bit more to talk about how you're feeling about how you're doing. Let me share it this time. All right, can you see that, Tim?
I can. Yep.
Okay.
Digital strategy wins or loses depending on how we're thinking about that. And something you said is so important, Carolyn, about this, which is this is not moral failure, people. Like there's no reason to feel bad, guilty. There is a lot of reason that you will feel shame, and that's unfortunate, and we'll talk through that. But in a perfect world, you wouldn't, because this is like just here's where we're at. This is just taking a diagnostic, just running some tests. So please don't feel a certain amount of way about that. Accountability was 47%. The next highest was a tie between data quality and system sustainability. The third one is another tie between solution fit and digital strategy, and utilization was last, which makes sense since it was first on the other one.
That does make sense. Yeah. And I think what's interesting here too is I don't see, like there's no one that was highest for a lot of people. Like there's a pretty good spread of the things that
Mhm.
people are having difficulty with.
Yep.
So which kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier. Like there's something difficult about it in all these different aspects, right?
And Marcos, you made a really great comment about why your utilization is higher for your organization, which has to do with compliance. And in a weird way, that compliance then is an accountability source. So one way of thinking about it for your organization is that actually you have external accountability that is creating that for you. So, all right, this is my son in the background there with the long hair. That's my son. His name is John David. A couple years ago, he came to me and he said, "Can I build a canoe?" And I said no. But the way I said no was I said, only if I approve it, which was my way of saying no because I was never going to approve it. Because if you have a canoe in your wood shop, that's what you've got for the next 2 years. A couple weeks later, I'm on the phone, distracted. He comes in, hands this little cardboard thing, and I say, "Oh, that's cool." And he said, "So can I?" And I was like, "Okay." And I just signed off on the canoe without realizing it. So the next thing I know, he is out with his grandparents getting lumber and building this canoe. So here he is in the backyard, like that's not a coffin, that is the canoe. And he just started putting it together. There he is with a jigsaw. There it is right there. And if you like, he was 13 and I did not think that he would finish it, but he did. And here he is on High Lake Reservoir, and he goes all the way across there and all the way back. He went out like 4 times in that canoe. It was a very tippy canoe, but he built it and he was not even 15 when he finished it. So I was very impressed. I was like super excited because that made me really proud of him. And the takeaway here is that I love doing projects with my son. I really do. Um, and but and you probably think I'm a good dad, and I am, hopefully. But I want to just show you how one rephrasing will change your mind about that. So if I say I'm a good dad, I love working on projects with my son, you're all like, "Ah, good dad, that's cool." If I say I work on my son who is a project, like red flags everywhere, kids in counseling, right? You see what I'm saying? Like we are so wired to understand one core truth. And in consulting for over 10 years now, I've never seen a consultant make this mistake of calling people projects. Like it was almost the only mistake I haven't seen. But we are very clear that people are not projects. If you're in fundraising, you know that donations matter, but donors aren't donations. And if you treat them like they're donations, they stop giving. And we also know on some level that technology matters, but that humans aren't tech. Unfortunately, in this area, we are particularly bad about forgetting the humans. And it makes sense that we've done that, but it is so important for us to start dividing issues that are technology from issues that are human. One Valley ran into this. They're a community foundation that's local to me. Bridget is the CEO. She's a really good friend of mine. And I want you to pay attention to that triangle right there. She's the CEO and the leader. And Jennifer works with her. She's the COO. And you can see the two little feet right there. They came to me. They were on a CRM. They had a lot of questions about the CRM. And they just came and said, hey, like, is it time to move off? This is not going well. So I had Jennifer just do the quiz you just took. These are not her results, but she got results back. And I looked at them and I said, here's what I see right now. When I'm talking with you, I feel like you're a little bit off balance. There's a lot of what you're hoping for is that somebody will come in and be the expert for you and solve some of this. And you've got a lot of imposter syndrome. And when I checked in with Bridget, what I found is Bridget knows a lot about tech, but did not know how to lead Jennifer when it came to the technology. And so you've probably already seen my logo, which is these shapes, but not in this order. You can just look behind me. You can see what it's supposed to look like. And the idea here is you could see very clearly that their human stack was not aligned well. And so we came up with a plan and we said, we're going to measure your digital health. We're going to identify who's driving. We're going to identify who's leading. We're going to create a monthly plan. And ultimately, they ended up getting into our program called Digital Driver's Ed. That's not the only thing that can happen from that. But those four things right there are really essential in terms of what next steps most organizations should do. When we get down to that fourth step on monthly plan, that gets a little bit, you want to be really clear about what that looks like. The rest of those are pretty easy to just start looking at and to start knowing who's working on what. I will tell you why they got to this place, but today it is totally different. Bridget is leading really, really well. Jennifer is killing it. Their data problems, they thought that they were going to need middleware. Instead, she's just solving their issues. She's working with another consultant. That consultant is done more in the last few months, Bridget said, than in the prior 2 years combined. So, and there's just a lot of confidence. Jennifer's the boots on the ground person, and Bridget is the leader. So the triangle's leader, the boots on the ground, that's the driver. That's what I call the driver. And maybe you're the same place. You're like, where do we start? And what I want to say is you start here. And I have other workshops that I give, but I start with this one, which is your digital health. And then there are other workshops that we can go through to solve those other questions that you want to look at more immediately, but it does all start with your digital health. And you've already taken this. So if you didn't before, you can grab the code there, take it. If you were hesitant before, now you feel like you want to, then great. Okay. And you've got something like this. These are the 6 vitals. Your answer looked something more like this if you saw it. I just want to say the overall score, honestly, is not that helpful. It just tells you like, out of 10, where are you? But really what's more important is to know in which areas are you higher or lower. So for example, both of these are organizations that got a 5.2 out of 10. They have very different vitals, different measurements on their vitals, completely different scores. And so here's what that quiz will tell me. So I'm just going to take one organization that we worked with, and when they took this, their whole team took it. And when we looked at that, I compared it to a puzzle, and I just said, your team is like, you have all of the pieces, you flip them upside right, and you counted the pieces, you group them by color, all the other stuff that us puzzle nerds do. But the box is gone, and now your team is arguing about what the picture looks like, right? And the reason I was saying that is their executive team, the lowest score for all of the metrics that we took was from their executive team on digital strategy. And that's the team that's supposed to be making the digital strategy. So when I saw that, I was like, that's really telling. And so that's, and also when I looked at the range of scores on that, you could see like there's a lot of variance here. People are not agreeing even on what the problem is. So just by comparing like how wide was the variance on that, we can see Like system sustainability is almost the only one they really agreed on, that and solution fit, I guess. But there's a pretty high variance besides that. So that's what it can tell us. Here's this is a more detailed version of that.
This is just so interesting, Tim, because I was going to ask, like, do you have multiple people take this quiz and then
Yep.
kind of triangulate their answers of who thinks which part is, their guesstimate of how it's doing? That's really interesting. And
I'm
I'm sure
working right
telling.
now with an organization, like it's a large organization, over 100 staff have filled this out. And I'm running analysis. I'll be on site with them week after next to talk with their executive team about what I'm finding with that. So I do offer a diagnostic for larger organizations. And the only extra thing I do is I allow them to add comments behind every question. And I actually don't want more input than that. This is not discovery, it's a diagnostic. And the difference there is that discovery is like exploratory surgery. This is more like running some tests. If you go to a doctor, you want the doctor to say, let's run some tests and then do exploratory surgery. Like you don't ever want it to be the other way around, right? So, yeah. And also, if you're ever out on the street, Carolyn, I'm sure you'll get this too. If you're ever out on the street and you need to diagnose somebody's tech really quickly, you can boil it down to two questions. You can just say, is your tech getting a little bit better or worse every day? And do you trust the data? And with those, the answers to those two questions will give you a lot of information about where they're going, how they feel, all that kind of stuff. So, okay, does that make sense?
Those are great two questions. Of course, there's six dimensions in this, but yes, I
Yep.
definitely, when you talk to people, even just like you talk to them a little while, you can get that sense of, is tech getting better or is tech going downhill?
Yeah. And the other thing to say, if there are any other data nerds like me on here, I am not measuring actual data quality. I'm not measuring solution fit. I don't even really care about that. What I'm measuring is people's perception of it. And people will behave based on their perception, which is really key to know because we humans change on a trend and we measure on the trend. So if you start to treat the trend and reverse the trend of people's thinking, you'll actually adjust their behavior way before the data actually tells them that it should be adjusted. So you can relatively quickly have them start behaving as if the data is higher quality just by starting to work on it together and creating a sense of, oh, we're improving this data together.
That was another
Um,
thing I really loved about this quiz is that you don't have to go out and find the answers and come report back on like this data or that process or this tool or
yep,
anything like that. It really is your perceptions.
yes, exactly. Um, yeah, good point. Yeah. Okay, here's the order in which you want to work on these issues. And what I expected when I first started doing this work is that there would be like 5 different archetypes that we would find that you should do this work on. And instead, the same pattern kept emerging and kept emerging. Finally, I was like, this is the pattern. And so that doesn't mean that the quiz is meaningless at all. It basically tells you how much time you're going to spend on each one of these steps. And it always starts with digital strategy, very first thing. And then the second thing is you'll work on data quality and system sustainability together. You'll usually stagger that, so you're starting one before, but you could do either one in either order. And the next thing you're gonna do is work on accountability. And here's the big trick. Solution fit is adjusted when you start working on anything after digital strategy. So as soon as you start to improve the data quality, you're actually adjusting solution fit. And especially when you start working on system sustainability, it's basically continuous improvement. And so you're starting to adjust the solution fit along the way. And then utilization is a trailing indicator, almost always. It's really helpful to know something like, and I think this was the case for Marcos, if you have low accountability, I mean, I don't know for Marcos if you had low accountability, you had high utilization. I always compare utilization to solution fit data quality and accountability to see if it's high, then is that because there's high accountability or is it because the solution fit and data quality are high? And so that's what I'm looking at there.
Can you leave it on the slide just for a minute? And I wanted to just ask you to go through your sub questions, because there may be some people listening or on the webinar who are like, utilization, like that sounds really technical.
Oh, yeah,
But that
yep,
just means, are staff using your systems the way they were intended,
yep,
or do they have to do a lot of workarounds, like, oh, I download this into a spreadsheet and then I re-upload it to the other, like that sort of thing, right?
yep. And I'll actually go through each one of these.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I've still got time. So yeah. Um, so this is what I call the magic order. You want to start digital strategy, then data quality, system sustainability, accountability, and utilization and solution fit are indirect things that you work on, unless you do a big lift and start adding another system for solution fit. Okay, first up, human stack vitals. So there are three: system sustainability, digital strategy, and accountability. And I'm going to tell these or talk about them by looking at my logo. And the first thing to say on that is we're not talking about individual use of technology. We're talking about an organization's use of technology. And just like the tech stack is a community of technologies, the human stack is a community of humans that use tech together. And when you're working in on the human stack, there's always a leader that is accountable, strategic, and a driver who's boots on the ground, responsible, and tactical. So one way of thinking about this is that it only takes one human to imagine a better world, right? Like that's easy, but to actually make a better world, you need more than one person. You need a stack. And so two people is the smallest you can have a human stack with. So, um, and the first one of those is digital strategy. Digital strategy, you should think of as alignment, right? The leader is very aligned with the driver in this case. And so this is a starter digital strategy if you don't have one right now. If you don't have a roadmap, you're not sure what your strategy is, make this your strategy. Figure out your digital health, find out who's driving, figure out who's leading, and then make a monthly plan. If it's helpful to join Digital Driver's Head, which is our online course, great, glad to have you, but you don't need to. You can get going with this right here. So that can be a starter digital strategy. If your strategy is not in alignment, it won't work. You can just see right here. And so Carol and I have worked with so many organizations that want tech, they've budgeted for it, they've done all this work, all these RFPs, all of this other stuff, and did not take care of this piece right here, which is to make sure that their tactical team and their leadership team are in alignment and ready to go. And it's not the whole team, it is a person and a person, right? There's a strategic person and a tactical person. All of technology success boils down to the relationship between these two people. Um, okay, accountability is a facet of that relationship. I call accountability just, it's attention plus power. That's what I call accountability. And when I look at my logo and I think about accountability, it's the gap between the leader and the driver. It needs to be close enough to collaborate, but not overlapping so that it's micromanaging, right? And and accountability has three different forms. So the kind of the worst form of it is to ignore behavior. When leaders ignore behavior, that is not positive accountability. You can police undesirable behavior, and that's better than ignoring. But the best is to reward the behavior that you want. So recognition-based behavior, it just hits our brains and we're like, okay, I want to do more of that. And especially, I don't know if anybody's paid attention to the report around retention and nonprofits that came out late recently, but one of the main causes of churn or of people leaving organizations is the relationship between their supervisor and themselves. And that's not different in technology. So um, when it comes to accountability, if you're not aligned, that's one issue here is digital strategy, but also this doesn't work. They're not close enough to each other, right? Or if you're working with someone who just ignores you, right? That's the worst. So that's what happens with accountability. Another version of this can be if there's static in between what's going on. So if there's constant conflict between the leader and the driver, you're going to run into issues with your technology. And the last one is if there's just a wide gap, can never get any questions answered. You've met like 2 times in the year to talk about technology, but anytime your leader needs something, they're coming to you about it, but they won't answer your question. Like that's what it feels like. And then you end up feeling really small and distant. Um, yes, Haley, it does apply so much more than just to tech. I'm not putting it in that box at this point. I really want to just say, let's fix the tech with these ideas, but you're right. There's a lot of organizational theory and design here. Thank you for that comment. System sustainability. This is, are you creating relevant ongoing system improvements? And the way I think about this is that, are people complaining? Complaining is a sign of hope. And what you want to do in a system is get people to feel comfortable enough to complain. Because if they will, then you can keep shaping the data in the systems so that they are improving and working. When it comes to how I think about this, I think about it as keeping things proportional, right? And so when people say, hey, this isn't working for me, you can grow the system out in that area so that it will work. So this is my version of where system sustainability is not working. The leader wants a lot more than like, this is where like the human stack missed leg day, right? So, and then you can have the opposite too, where you've got like a full stack developer under somebody that doesn't really know what to do with them, and that can create a lot of problems. One time when my daughter was very young, she went on a trip with her grandmother and everything went wrong. Wrong destination, flights canceled, just everything went wrong. And my daughter held it together all day because her grandmother said, when you get to where you're going, I'm going to get you chocolate ice cream. And when they got to where they were going, got to the front of the counter and ordered chocolate ice cream, the man said, we're out. And my daughter just dropped to the floor, heap of tears, big mess. Because humans can only handle so much change, right? So when it comes to sustainability, one of the biggest issues in technology is this idea that you have to pay attention to how much disruption you're creating by by getting a new solution fit, by making any of these adjustments, and how much capacity for change people have. And that's not how much tech capacity for change, that is organizationally, how much does this person have? And just like my daughter had a negative reaction to being disappointed and hitting a level of change that she just couldn't deal with, that one last thing, when humans hit high levels of change saturation over and over, they respond negatively and they associate that negativity to whatever caused it. So if we're implementing a CRM, which I did lots of times, and created disruption and change saturation for months on end for people, at the end of that, they were not happy with that CRM, even if it made their jobs easier. And they turned to the one thing that would give them mastery and autonomy, which is spreadsheets, right? Saw it over and over and over. So if we're implementing systems and we're not paying attention to change saturation, we're going to run into issues.
I feel like that's also like a cultural issue as well, like that change capacity for change. And then
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of organizations, I just heard this recently, you got to really read the room. Like if you're an organization that has kind of a top-down culture, then telling people this is how we're doing it now may be fine for you change-wise. Like that's what people are used to. Or if you're more entrepreneurial people need to know like, why are we doing it this way? Who's going to do it? How are we going to do it? Then if you're just telling them we're going to do it this way, it's going to be a misfit, right? So you need to be aware of that, like with your daughter, read the room, like what is going to happen if there's no chocolate ice cream at the end.
And one of the reasons I say complaining is a sign of hope is because you and I have both seen organizations swap out massive systems unnecessarily. And if they would have just solved some of the lowercase issues, then actually they would be using the system just fine. But instead, they delayed. They're going to spend 18 months getting to the same spot with a new system and spend 6 figures getting there. And they haven't practiced the art of saying what's not working and fixing those things, incrementally. And so that's why that's why I put change saturation under system sustainability. How do you create regular small amounts of change that are effective for specific users? Right. So all of these are different ways that the human stack can be shaped in the wrong way. There's only one that it looks the right way in. That's the 10 out of 10 on all three of those factors. I'm going to fly through these because we have so little. I do not know how, like, we got so little time left, but I'm kind of glad because it's more understandable what's happening on the tech stack side of things than the human stack side. Solution fit is just if you have the right tech stack. The one takeaway that I want to leave people with is how stacks are formed, right? So this is a legitimate tech stack. And when I was a consultant, I felt like anybody that doesn't have a CRM doesn't have a legit tech stack. And that was just a really stuck up way of thinking because actually a lot of small nonprofits, like these are all different. Like this is how tech stacks form over time as organizations evolve. But from the first one, the starter website and the financial operations, all of those were legitimate tech stacks. And there are about 34 boxes on here. So when your team says we've got too many systems, just keep in mind, like there's 34 types of systems. If you double up any of them, you have more than 34. And so that's all just to say in modern workforces, you're going to have a lot of systems. Every time you have a meeting to reduce the number of systems, you'll have a new system at the end of that meeting. I guarantee it. It's just the way it works every single time. The issue isn't if you have too many systems, it's whether you're using them effectively and whether you know who's supposed to be using them. So data quality, here's what I want to say on data quality. This is a 6-word theory of change about data. So data is plural for a thing called datum, by the way, which I didn't even know, but I keep finding out. Data turns into information and information turns into insight. If you do not have data that you trust, you should not be using that to make decisions. The big reason that organizations don't use their data to make decisions is that they know better. They've seen how it's made. And so organizations really need to start treating data as an asset base, especially in a world of AI, because the AI differentiator is basically the quality of your own data and what you know. And then there are different levels across an organization on who spends more time in which of these areas. So staff spend the most time making data, directors spend the most time with information, executives spend the most time with insight. It's not to say staff aren't insightful, that's not the point here. What happens is that directors become the bottleneck. They need to find out from executives what insights do we need, and they need to pair that with the available trusted data. When they don't find that data, they need to make changes or they need to clean up the data. So that's a 6-word theory of change. If you really dig into that, it will change so much about how you're working with systems. The last one is utilization. And that's just, are you using the systems as intended? And that's actually all I'm going to say about that. All right, so picking up the story with Jennifer, what happened with Jennifer and her team was that they did go through a lot of they actually did their own work on understanding their organization, counting up their systems. They were using 48 systems, and by the time they were done, they were using 49 systems. And it wasn't too many. It was like what it took. They did do digital driver's ed. The 4 skills that we taught Jennifer are assessing her current state. That's how she became an expert and seen as an expert. Instead of bringing me in to be the expert at hundreds of dollars an hour, she became the expert and she's so good. She knows how to maintain the data. She knows how to manage requests, and she is driving the culture by meeting with the team around that. They're really succeeding at that. If digital driver's ed sounds interesting to you, I'm glad to talk with you about it. The main point isn't that. The main point is that it's possible for someone like Jennifer working about 2 days a month on data and information systems to actually feel confident. And for Bridget to spend 1 hour a month meeting with Jennifer to hear what's going on with the system. That's really the kind of oversight that we're talking about. So that's what we did with Digital Driver's Ed. My dad joke on Digital Driver's Ed is learn to drive your tech before your tech drives you crazy.
How can we collaborate with community IT to support our needs with no in-house tech person? And I would say, for outsourced IT, a managed service provider, that is really, really really difficult. It's very difficult for us to work with a organization that is not aligned, as you were talking about, Tim, with the different pieces going the different ways. We sometimes get people, and our heart just goes out to them. It's like the intern calling us, and they'll
Yep.
say something about how the executive director, we're using donated laptops, but I really think that we need to, do this and that. And it's so difficult because until you have that executive buy-in, and you start doing the alignment that you're talking about and building up that maturity and ability, like in a lot of cases, there's like you need the ability within your organization before you can get an external IT support to, function. If you're so dysfunctional, it's not going to be a good relationship. So can you talk a little bit more about that and like kind of how I know we talked about how you landed on helping smaller nonprofits develop the skills within to be able to manage their IT, but can you talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we've structured that in, and this was really intentional because we did so much support work over the years as a consultant. Inside of Zone 3, Skill Zone 3, which is managing requests, the first thing to say is never fix something that wasn't requested. Technologists have a really bad habit of fixing things nobody wanted fixed in the first place. So always wait for there to be a request. And it can be the intern that's making the request. That's fine. And then there are 6 buckets, 6 queues that we teach our drivers to put them in. And the intern, by the way, is a great use case for digital driver's ed. That's why we built it. So that that intern can say, okay, here's the training nobody in that organization can give them. And one of the queues is called a consultant queue. And what happens is that they go to a conversation queue first and then to the human stack community and says, hey, does anybody know how to solve this? And if neither of those are working and it's important and needs to be solved, it goes into the consultant queue. That's where it would be ready for a service provider like Community IT Innovators to come along and say, okay, right, this is really clear. You've thought it through, you've got it prioritized, you've got all of the questions answered already. So now we know what to do with it. Um, and a lot of that is you'll spend half your time with the consultant figuring out what you don't know in order to find out what you need. All of that could be done without charging hundreds per hour
Ahead of time.
beforehand.
Yeah, yeah, to really figure out what the business need is. So I love that. We have a quick question in the Q&A, and that is, would you say the human stack is a way to set up a data tech governance method and engagement?
I love the word engagement there because that is like here's what we don't have an adoption problem. Actually, we don't have a change management problem, and I don't think we mostly have governance problems, although sometimes we do. Adoption is actually accountability. Change management is actually habits. And when it comes to governance, those are meaningful conversations that are relevant. And so, yes, in fact, one of the queues is called the conversation queue. And that is specifically for governance questions. And it rolls up to a monthly meeting. For larger organizations, we have this built inside of a full scale white glove methodology. And in that methodology, yep, both engagement and governance are part of what that methodology was built to handle. So great question.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because like you were saying, like you might be queuing up that consultant ask, and it's for, like a database consultant or, like there's a specific piece of the tech stack that you need outside expertise on.
Yep.
So that makes sense. Can you flip to the next slide? Because I want to make sure that we are mindful of the time and talk about our learning objectives. So I think we did pretty well. We wanted people to be able to take this free digital health quiz. And you have that link if you want to take it later. We wanted to understand human behaviors and needs that are at the root of IT management, learn the basics of nonprofit tech decision-making strategies. So you gave us like a very quick whirlwind, kind of teaser for how to understand a lot more about how to make nonprofit tech decisions, and then learn some of the orders of steps to take to gain that decision-making confidence, like the woman that you were talking about, who, was able to just handle running things while she's doing it, and it's become more aligned with her leadership. So I want to thank you, Tim, so much for joining us today. I feel like, it was a whirlwind, but you've just given me so much to think about, and I hope the attendees as well. I want to thank everybody who attended. Thanks for joining us for this hour. I hope it was useful. You have our contact information. You can get in touch with us after the webinar if you have more questions. And yeah, please use the quiz, use the resources that are on Tim's site, and let us know how it goes. We always want to know the good success stories and the challenges.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking with everybody.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, everybody.